Disclaimer, my views and opinions expressed in this video do not represent those of my ex-employer, even though I won't be naming their name. Hey YouTube, welcome back to the World Wide Web. Before Corona, I was working aboard a cruise ship all the way over in Miami. Albeit a really short time, it was a great time of my life. For a lot of people that have been on a cruise ship for a holiday, you're probably really curious about what life is like for an employee behind the scenes. I'm gonna do my best to fill you in on that today. Now, there's like heaps of videos on the internet. I've watched my fair share before I boarded, but I found that none of them answered the really hard-hitting questions that I wanted to know. So I'm gonna try and do that today, but I've also got to be mindful that I signed a contract because I can't talk about certain things. But I'm gonna try and navigate all that and keep it really real with you. G'day mates, for those new here, my name is Mikey D and I worked as an entertainer and a DJ on board a cruise ship out of Miami. I've been DM'd a whole bunch of questions about what life is like on a cruise ship, so I'm gonna answer all the frequently asked questions and then I'm gonna dive into everything else, the pros and cons of working on a cruise ship. Where do you sleep? So the guests sleep on the outside of the cruise ship. The employees kind of sleep in the middle of the cruise ship, if that makes sense. We've got rooms that go all the way from below deck 0 all the way up on my cruise ship to deck 9. Do you eat the same food as guests? No, we do not, but we do have our own staff buffets with changing menus that changes every night, which is good and bad. On some days we can eat food in the guest areas, but it really depends on the hotel director aboard your cruise ship. Do you get days off? No. Short answer, no. We work 7 days a week. I don't know what it's like for other companies. I know for the company I was working for, there are no days off. Unless you're a part of a specific department, but for the majority, no. How long are your contracts? It really depends, from 6 months to 9 months. It can range anywhere between that. Do you stay on the same cruise ship the entire time? This really depends on departments and what contract you sign. For entertainment, generally we'd stay on the cruise ship for the entire 6 months. Though if you're on a swing contract, which is like a fill-in contract, that can change. You can be on monthly contracts, weekly, sometimes 2-3 months. It really depends on that one. Can you sleep with the guests? No. This question's been asked so many times. No, you can't sleep with the guests. Just no, you're not allowed to do that. Is there a jail on board? Yeah, there sure is. It's wild. It was next to our laundry. How many hours do you work in a full working day? Again, this is different for different departments. So I can only speak for the entertainment, but it also differed from if you're at sea or for in port days. In my contract, it said I could work anywhere up to about 70 hours a week. But generally I'd work about 8-hour days. Sometimes I'd get a low amount, which was nice on a port day, maybe 6 hours. But then sometimes I'd go upwards of 10 to 12 hours, around there. The thing is, you've got to look at it like this. I'd wake up on an early morning at about 6:10 to get ready for work at 6:40. I needed to be at my station by 6:40. I work for about 3 hours and then I've got a break. But then my next shift's not till 2 o'clock. And then from that, I probably won't finish that night, with little breaks in between, but not long. I won't finish till about 11:30, 11:45. So although I'm not working the entire day, I'm certainly awake for a large portion of it. So I'm going to bed late and I'm waking up pretty early. It's especially tough if you want to do other things within your day, but I'll get to all of that later on. How is the pay? For an Australian who happened to be a DJ and an entertainer, it was pretty good for me because COVID just tanked the conversion rate. So I got a pretty good rate going back home. It's a really tricky question to navigate though, because you've got to factor in certain things like food, accommodation, uniform, that's all paid for. So that's a pretty huge plus. But then I also had to get a visa and I also had to get a medical check, which cost around $1,000. So all of those things really come into account when you look at the pay. Life on board. Now I'm gonna jump into the good sides of what it was like working aboard a cruise ship. Firstly, and you'll hear this on a lot of the videos, making lifelong friends from around the world really was one of the greatest experiences of all time. Being from a sheltered life in the suburbs in Australia, and then going to working with over 70 different nationalities on board was something that was truly mind-blowing and one of the best experiences of all time. I still keep in touch with my friends, but I do miss them a whole heap. The guests, for the most part, were absolutely phenomenal. They were the highlights of my day. Going out to the events, meeting the guests, talking with them, running trivias for them, running big events with the guests was just the best fun. I remember one of my highlights was an Australian guest was on board and I talked to her briefly, and before she left, she dropped off a massive tin of Milo. That kind of stuff you get with the guests so frequently because they're just so kind. And the awesome thing is, guests are in holiday mode, so they're really stoked to be there. So it creates a really, really fun atmosphere. The travel, of course, is an absolute upside to it. To say that I've been to Puerto Rico, Mexico, Honduras is just wow. I never thought I'd be at those places in my entire life, but going there and being there weekly is just, dare I say more? It's a really cool experience. Crew parties, we had some rages, man. It was a lot of fun. I've got to say, the thing I miss the most about being on the cruise ship right now, being in lockdown, is the fact that we got to dance so frequently. Dancing's a huge part of an entertainment job, which you'll learn when you go on board. Music. As a DJ, I was exposed to so many different genres of music. A lot of Latin music, which I just never ever come into contact with. Reggaeton, bachata, merengue. I'm so sorry I'm pronouncing them terribly. Not only is the music great, but Latinos and Latinas know how to move, and that's something that I needed to take back home, trying to get my hips moving. Ugh, amazing. I said this before, but working with people from all over the world, I worked with over 70 different nationalities. That is insane life experience that you just won't get anywhere else. And it was so heightened living with these people 24/7. Independence. It was my first time living out of home, and I did it in a pretty cool and safe environment, and very structured environment. I mean, my food was taken care of. I hate to say it, but my room was cleaned as well. You've got a structured schedule that you're sticking to. So all in all, that made for a really, really good experience for my first time living independently. Now, as an entertainer, I went into this wanting to treat it as an entertaining boot camp almost. I got to hone in on my skill set so much. I got to entertain to thousands of people every single day. I was running trivias, I was running big events on the stage with the cruise director to thousands. You get so comfortable being behind a microphone. It really is invaluable experience if you're an entertainer, and it's a great thing to take back home with you and to put on a resume. Phenomenal. You share a room. Now, some people hate it, some people love it. I loved it. Having someone to go back home to at the end of the day and chat about whatever you experience within the day is just awesome. Jake then Josh, my old roommates, were just the best guys. Honestly, I miss them dearly. Friends, it's me, Mikey, in the editing studio, and I just want to say that I'm sorry the video is going to be cut here because we're at 8 minutes right now. I'm going to chop it up into 2 different videos. The next video is going to be the cons, and it's also going to be things that I'd like to see change within the cruise industry. Like, subscribe, stick around for the next one. Mwah! Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.